It took a 6-month learning curve to get them going, and we're in the end stages here, and there's a lot still to be done, and I appreciate your patience and being here tonight, and these gentlemen have worked very hard, and you know, of course not everybody's happy, and I'm not, because I've lost my phone for 4 days, and they're out there digging up trenches and trying to fix it, and who knows when I'm going to get a phone back. So there's 6 of us on highway. Jim's went to Burnaby to do his job because he doesn't have a phone either, so sort of been a nightmare, but anyways, I'm glad you guys made it, and we got Arden here, and he'll be answering any technical questions tonight. And then Peter can get into any administrative or historical questions you might have, or anything along those lines. And but I'll direct the questions. It's going to be fairly simple, just like our last meeting. There'll be a speaker of knowledge. You'll be put on the speaker list. You'll have a question. You'll ask your question. I'll direct it to either Peter or Arden. They will answer that question. We'll move on to the next person, because everyone needs a chance to speak, and we don't want to be here till midnight. So make your question pointed. Don't get into any editorial opinions or an ongoing history from 1940 to present of what we've done with our water. We just need to focus on what's going on now and what we're going to do in the future, and hopefully we can come up with some answers tonight. And we got a presentation we're going to do by Arden, and please let the presentation finish, and if you want, you can simply just raise your hand. I'll acknowledge you, put you on the speaker's list, and you're there once I acknowledge you. Kathleen's first on the speaker's list. She already, said, hey, I want on that list, so she's on it, and so she'll be number 1 out on the speaking, and we'll go from there. So anyways, without any further ado, are you ready, Mr. Arden? And so this is Arden and Bolton, and he's the able assistant and main man for Mr. Peter Hughes, who's head the TNRD of Water and Waste Management. So there you go.
Peter's going to start.
Peter's going to start, okay?
Okay. Hi everybody, thanks for coming. At least it's cool in here. It's nice. Even though Steve said we weren't going to talk history, I did want to talk a little bit. How did we end up being here? I think it's back about 2004, 2005, Walkerton, all that stuff that happened. Drinking Water Protection Act was put into enforced by the province, put hardships on the improvement district. They approached the TNRD to have us take over the water system. We did that. We did it by a referendum, and all the folks here said yes, they wanted us to do it. Secondly, 50%, 50 plus 1%. That's where we go. Okay. At that time, I asked to borrow some money so we could do some improvements. We had a grant from the province. We put in the crossing under the bridge. We put in a new reservoir with that money. Second part, came to talk to you again. Cooks Ferry Indian Band and INAC were upgrading the water system. We wanted to upgrade the water system. It made sense in my mind and in others that we try and do this jointly. I came to you again and asked, can we do this? We knew we were going to need, Interior Health wanted us to get away from Murray Creek, from surface water, because of all the issues we have with turbidity, chlorination problems. We went through a huge study, was paid for by INAC, for one. And secondly, we looked at like 25 different scenarios. We narrowed it down to about 6, then we narrowed it down to a couple. I came and presented to you. One option was putting wells in. The best place to put the wells, based on water quality and quantity, was at Kamshin Area 1, and we decided. The other option was, and I presented numbers, that project to go and work with Cooks Ferry Indian Band was about $2.4 million. One more, sorry, it was closer to 4. The other side of it was, our other option would be to put an intake in the river, because the creek was just too far away, and that would need a filtration plant, and those costs were huge. It was up around $5 or $6 million. Again, I asked the question, do you want us to do this? And asked you to borrow some more money on your behalf. You said yes. We did that. The next part was we applied for a Building Canada Fund grant, and we got about $467,000 to help pay for our portion of that. We went ahead and did it. The wells are in, the wells are working. We put in the line between Cumshie and IR1, connected it to the system. It's tied into the new reservoir. We've shut off Murray Creek. And the big point is, we're no longer on a creek that has unlimited source and it's run by gravity. We're now on a well system. The wells were designed to meet capacity for this community, including Cooks Ferry, an estimated populations up to 2027. So it's basically, that population is about twice what it is now. So the system is designed to meet the need. Now we're paying for power to pump it. So the big point and why we're here, and I know there's all this commotion in the community, is watering restrictions. So I'm going to turn it over to Arden, let him talk, show you some information that we've gathered from the past. Information, we have a SCADA system now that monitors the levels in the reservoir, how much flow, et cetera, and Arden can talk to all that, and he's going to show you in pictures. Thank you. I'll run this.
So first of all, I was in the bathroom here and I see it's a low flush toilet, and the sinks don't drip, so it's really good. And it's even got a separate flush for number 1 and 2. It's really cool.
That was gas tax money we paid for that.
Really? Okay, well that's a bonus, saving us water.
And the air conditioning.
And the air conditioning.
Oh, that's nice too. Next slide there. Yep. Okay. So, as you're aware, we started the system up a couple months ago. Things didn't start smoothly for us. It's a complex system. As Peter's already alluded to, it's, I don't know, $4 million and change, I think, total between all the stuff that we've built, line across the new bridge, new reservoir up here, new lines all the way down, all the controls and SCADA, and all that stuff which we'll talk about too. It's fairly complex stuff, and using a term that Steve brought up earlier, it's like having a new baby. Things don't always go smoothly at the beginning. We've got some new operators on the band side. We have to get up to speed. Our own operator who's in the room here has to learn the whole new system and how to use the computer. There's a call-out system where if there's an error or some kind of alarm, it phones people. All those phone numbers have to be fixed. I mean, there's been issues along the way. So behind the scenes, we've been working our butts off, frankly, to try to get that working. Now, on top of that, we've had some other issues which we weren't really prepared for. So one of them is consumption. It was way, way, way higher than what it should be. And it's not necessarily your fault entirely. We'll talk about that more. But we also think there's leaks in the system. Okay, so that's this first slide here. What we're looking at here is historical consumption. We graphed it out from 2007 to present day. I won't get into the gory details, but I will talk about one point on here that I want to show you. And that is, I don't have a pointer, so we're going to go to this line right here. Let me think now, is that the right one? That's blue, right? Purple, 10,000, okay, right here. Okay, so if we go to 2010, this purple line, you can see it drops down through the season, September, October, November, December. December is your expected low period. And the purple one basically shows you're in that area. If we go to 2011, follow it from, basically from that point, cross over to here, and 2011 is light blue, up like normal, right here. You can see something happen. Now the reason we graph this out is because it shows us definitively what your consumption is. This is what it should be in this range. And you can clearly see that it's almost double what it was. This line right here represents a leak in the system. It's a big leak. Okay, that's why I do this stuff. So go back and look at this, look at the data and say, okay, something's wrong. That's where it happened. So September, October 2011, big leak in the system. Don't know why, but it's there. Okay, so that continues. You see it go down here. Now look at your December consumption. Clearly, nobody's watering lawns in December. So that consumption there is almost double again what it should be. And you can see that's continued along this path here, from the purple to the light blue. Okay, that light blue changes into 2012, which is the orange line. You can see that that's much higher than the average, and that continues through the whole season. In fact, when you get back to that same period, it's exactly the same consumption there, because it developed a leak the year before, no leak developed since then, same number. So that's an example of how to read this data to find leaks. Actually, if you get serious about it and look at it more seriously, I found about 4 leaks in there, but that's the biggest one, most obvious one. So the first question was, is there leaks in the system? Yes, there is. Okay, I found 4 in there. Is there more? Absolutely there is. So we had water leak detection guy here today and yesterday. I was out with him this morning a couple of times. and we found some significant ones over near the side of the river. He's not done yet, but we went around and listened to services to houses, hydrants, standpipes, that kind of thing, looking for gross leaks initially, and we think we found about 4 of them already. So we haven't even got halfway through yet, and we're already there. Now the next part of the leak detection is he goes back and he listens to every valve, every hydrant, with a comparator. I just forgot the name of it. It's like comparator. Anyway, it compares the signal from both locations through a computer, and it tells you in meters exactly where the leak is between those 2 locations. So that's next, but I did find out this morning that he twisted his ankle rather badly, and he probably won't be back till tomorrow. And he probably might send his son back, so Alan will probably look for somebody else tomorrow. So he did injure himself today, but we'll continue along and get it done. Okay, so next slide. This is what the screen looks like. It's the overview screen for the SCADA system. So on the computer, from home, I can sign on to this and see what's happening with the system. This is just a snapshot from this morning. We were at 68% again this morning. We'll get into the transit, the little button up here, hit transit, graphs it all out for me, tells me what's going on. This is the Spences Bridge Reservoir, or sorry, the around the Spences Bridge Reservoir. This is the IR1 reservoir. Down at the bottom, there's 3 wells here. I don't know if you can read that. 10.7% is the level in the wells. One of our issues is when you pump the well continuously, as that one has been for the last almost 3 months, you can cause catastrophic failure of the well itself. Not just the pump and motor, but the well. So it'll start sucking in way too much volume of water, pulls the fines in with it, plugs off the screen, and basically it's toast. Wells are extremely expensive. A municipal well, high-end municipal well, could be 60,000, 70,000, even higher than that. So we don't want to be in a scenario where we're destroying our wells. There's 3 of them there. So one of them pumps continuously. We'll get into that in a few minutes. Then the other 2 come in as they're needed. Some of these things have been running 24 hours a day for up to a month and a half now. So we need to get that under control before we have a serious problem. Okay, down at the bottom again, I mentioned these percentages. As you pump continuously, the groundwater level starts to go down, down, down. It is possible at some point where you start sucking air into the motor, into the pump, and it starts to cavitate and cause damage. And we've already approached that limit a couple times. So the reason we're here today is not just about conserving water, it's about catastrophic failure. Okay? We're on the verge of that. So my job is to make sure it doesn't happen. Okay, next thing is when these things are running, these little arrows flash, they all come into one header. It splits right here in the pump house. One side goes to Spences Bridge, one side goes over here. So when the reservoir drops, it calls for water. This valve right here turns green, water flows this way, turns red, it's off, and then this one's green, it flows the other way. They can both be green too. This tells me the flow on each side, and then the pressure in the header. We actually had an overpressure error a couple times at startup. The run from the wells down to our reservoir is very long. It has lots of friction in it, and it can cause some high pressure issues for us. We had that issue several times with startup too. It kicks out, doesn't restart, and then we have to come back.
The different wells, the different reservoir systems, you have the first one, what's that called again? Because it has to be different.
Sorry, IR1 is Kamshin.
So it is for Kamshin.
Yes.
So really the natives have their own reservoir system?
Sort of, in that case,
sort of,
but the rest of the lands here are all off the same side as ours.
So
that's right.
you can monitor the use on
All of it.
one side versus the other
Yeah,
side.
actually that's right here. Right here. Total flow to reservoir. That's today's use, that's yesterday's use, and that's total running. That's in cubic meters, and the same thing over here is for theirs. And it's summarized every day. In the report section up here, you just print the report. It tells you the history every day for the last, well, since it started.
So comparatively, how do we stand with the two?
Yeah, you can't just look at these numbers. You have to know population, right? So now we're going to talk about population in a few moments. There's a slide on that. And you divide this number by the population, you can figure out per capita usage. And actually, Spences Bridge side is way higher.
Hold on, Joe, you're next.
How are they leaks because? Is that in the new line or the old line?
Good question. So leaks can occur on 2 sides of the line. One is the private side and one's the public side. So my interest right now is to make sure the public side is correct. We found several already. Your question is valid because they're actually digging up the culvert line just down the road here, half a mile. Just finished talking to them moments before I walked through the door, and there's a leak right there. So we'll be looking at that in the next few days. That's the brand new line. Okay? Things can happen. At this point, it's too early to blame anybody. We need to find out what's going on.
We never noticed it before if we're getting to that Murray Creek now.
Okay, and that's a good point too, because in Murray Creek scenario, you have this endless supply of water that flows gravity down the system. It doesn't matter if there's leaks. It can spring holes all over and you've got locks. The reason we never knew they were there, and that's really where the crux of the matter is because, you know, at some point, the creek is so bad and so muddy, people here already know you just let the water run continuously or it builds up in your line. Al actually, the first time I've ever seen it, he calls me and says, well, we got this line that's plugged, and he's saying they got to start running continuously because there's so much silt. So when he opened up the valve to help him clean it out, it pushed out a snake of mud. I've never seen that before, except here. Okay? Which is why we're trying to create a system with drinking water. Okay?
Okay, David, you're next.
Yeah, there was a question about usage. The cum system is on its own, but all of the hookups to the reserve lands have water meters on it. So we monitor the amount of water being used on all of our reserves in town and cum.
That's right.
Thank you, David. Hank, you were next.
Yeah. Are we talking in liters here when you bring up this historic, imagine stometric here? Liters? 800,000 liters historic high? Can you go back to the graph we had?
Yeah, we could.
Are we talking about liters here?
The original numbers were in US gallons, and in the other stuff I've converted everything.
What is showing right now? You've got the historic high, 800,000 liters consumption. Is that in liters?
Yeah.
US gallons, I said.
U.S. gallons, Hank.
Is it yours gallons?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes. Darryl, you're next.
Yeah, did you, why weren't the lines checked over there before we looked into this, to see if there was leaks before we started all this?
Okay, well, at some point I need to justify where we spend money. So why didn't you put new winter tires on now before winter started to fly? Same kind of thing, right? So my point is that until recently, we didn't know there was leaks, and I already mentioned why. The creek flows and you don't know it's there. So in the new system, clearly we know there's leaks now. We have a finite amount of water going in, and generally speaking, we know folks are responsible, and we're looking at the system going, well, something's seriously wrong. Started to scramble. It's not easy to pull data like this together and plot it out for 5 years. It consumes a lot of time. Start analyzing that, and then obviously we found the answer. Okay, so we're looking for that now.
Yeah, but before I go on a trip with my truck, I check the fuel to make sure I've got enough before I go. I don't wait until I run up.
Okay, so I know where you're going with that. One of the things we tried to do at the beginning was evaluate the numbers that we had for water consumption before. In the scenario where we're running water intentionally to clear the lines, there's no way that those numbers would ever match anything logical. They're huge, they're massive consumption.
There's a guy going around checking water. He was over in the Big Horn Curl today, checking to see if there's leaks. Why didn't you do that before you started?
As I mentioned, those things cost money. So at that point, you need to justify why you're doing it, and right now I'm justifying why we're doing it.
If I recall, there was a leak detection done way back when Nair and Associates, I think, before we even got involved.
Yeah, I mean, the same guy's doing it. And I think 5 years ago is what he told me, or 5 or 6 years ago he was here. Normally that would be a decent amount of time to not have to do it again. Clearly that's not the case.
If I had an unlimited budget, I'd do it every year, but I don't.
There was an ice carving in somebody's front yard last year. That wasn't very hard to see. You're walking down the road and see it.
You know what, in almost every water system on the planet, we depend on the people, that's all of you, to bring anomalies to our attention. We're not here every day. Right? So if you know there's something going on, please phone me. We'll go fix it. Okay? Anyways. Any more questions here? This is percent flow for our injection for chlorine for treatment. And there's some stuff across the top there for choosing different reports and things, which we'll get into a little bit. And I think that's pretty much it. So this is an example of what we've been seeing recently. There was a time when it was raining a lot and everything was good. It got hot. I think this is Canada Day. Yes, it is. Canada Day is right there. people started watering all night, all day. This is the timeline. There's times actually on the bottom here which you can't read, but that's all day, all night. And then the odd day guys started watering. So yes, it's true that there's approximately 100 addresses that are odd and about 30 that are even. That is a problem, but it's not the problem. The problem that we're really facing is total consumption. So even if we shift that around, our total consumption is still too high. It still doesn't solve the problem. So we'll be addressing that, but that's not my first priority. My first priority is making sure we don't burn out pumps, collapse our wells, and find leaks. Okay, that's my first priority.
Have you burned 2 pumps out already?
We haven't burned any pumps out yet. Cross your fingers it doesn't happen. That's why we're having these conversations.
I heard there was 2 pumps burned out.
No pumps burned out. Okay? We don't want any burned out. That's bad.
Okay. Thank you. And make sure I acknowledge you before you speak. You guys are, this could go for a while. Hey, go ahead.
What's the output on the pumps in the well per minute?
Go back to slide.
Anybody got that number?
Yeah, it's right here. Right here it says 8.6 liters per second. This one says 7.6 liters per second. And when one of these goes off, it all flows through one pipe and it's up to 14.6 liters per second.
14.6 liters
Per second.
for all of them?
For both combined, it's 14.6, Hank.
Okay.
And
Per minute.
Roy?
What's the output of the pumps? Gallons per minute?
I don't know. I don't have that number with me. Can we
What is it about liters?
200. You don't know what pumps pump out?
50 minutes a liter. Were we talking about liters here, 50 minutes a liter?
14.6 liters per second. You can do the math.
I will.
I don't have it.
Yeah.
Per second?
If you do 14.6 liters per second, Roy, it's going to be about, 3 gallons a second.
Oh, these are
3 gallons.
Huh? So anyways, there you go. Okay, go ahead.
Pardon, can I ask you questions after that time there, please? Just one. Regarding the pipes that come up out of the well system into the reservoir, what size pipe is that? I've heard that it's a 4-inch pipe, and that's one of the reasons why we don't have the capacity. But I'm looking at this and I'm thinking, well, maybe that's because you don't want to put pressure on your pumps down there because these wells are really critical. So what size pipe would it be? 4 or 6 inch? For bringing the water out of the wells up into the reservoir?
There's a mix, actually. So parts of it are 4-inch and parts of it are 6-inch. So I think it's 6-inch. I'll help you out. I think it's 6-inch all the way down to the base.
6-inch coming up.
And then 4-inch up the hill. Is that right?
Yeah. 8 coming down.
So where's your 4-inch and where's your 6-inch?
6-inch, if you know where the pump house is down at Cumsheen, it's 6-inch all the way to just outside the door here.
Right.
And then it's 4-inch up the hill to the reservoir.
Right, so coming out of the wells themselves, up into that pipe system where you have the gauges, what size pipe is that?
Each one of these has their own pipe that comes into the header inside the building. So this is actually all inside the building right here.
Yeah.
And I believe it's 6-inch. There is a spot right next down to 4-inch for the water meter, which is not the problem. Okay.
Right?
Roy?
Yeah. What is the wellhead?
What is the wellhead?
How much wellhead do we have?
Sorry, I don't understand the question.
There's amount of water in the wellhead. How deep is it?
Okay, so you're talking how much water over top of the pumps? In this chart, they've only got in percent. I don't have it in meters in front of me, but I can look it up for you. It's in the report, and I could get you the number if it makes a difference.
And you haven't got gallons per minute?
We've got liters per second worked out, which converts to metric, is cubic meters per hour.
It's 3 gallons per second, a little more, which if you times it by 60, it would be 180. So there you go. And I think, Hank, did you have one?
Yeah.
Okay.
I want to get back to the consumption here. You just told me 14.6 per second, 1,000 per minute, 60,000 liters per hour. So now I go back, I just turned the garden hose on. I want to know. So one garden hose per minute is 40 liters per minute in our yard. That's one garden hose. So we turned 2 garden hoses on. So our consumption at home is 20,000 liters. That's on our restricted already 2 hours. So we make it 4 hours. We're burning up 80. Now I take opportunity, I only take 50 allowed to turn the water on, right? Because the other ones are restricted. I come to 1 million liters per day. Now, here comes the interesting part. No wonder you wells get keep up. I'm not even counting bathing water. I'm not counting flushing. I'm turning 2 garden hoses on at 40 liters per minute. It's a fair question. We wonder why the wells go dry. And we can go back to, of course, the old story, to the creek, where only 5% was consumed ever. That's one story. So the fair question is, and these are very conservative numbers, 1 million liters a day and 50 households turning their water on in the yard for 2 hours and 2 hours, not the 4 and 4. There's people in this community that faithfully leave their hoses on 24 hours a day because they're still on Murray Creek, right? Haven't got it through their head. What I'm saying is, no wonder your wells are running dry. There are the numbers. You do a crunch. That's your output. That's what we're using. So, fair question.
So you're mostly correct. If you look at million liters per day, it's 1.2 million liters per day approximately. And those numbers are right here in front of me for the entire month. On the consumption side, there's lots of items that depend on how people use it. So if you leave your hose run 24/7, then obviously that's a problem. That's why we're here today.
Well, that's where some people in the community have a problem with the new system. They're so used. Don't forget, you're living in Spences Bridge. You leave your water off for 2 days in the plants, and you got that plants. It's as simple as that. You're living in Spences Bridge. They're so used to Murray Creek. We used to have 5%. We use 5% of Murray Creek, like you said. It don't matter if there's leaks in it. We got lost there. Historically, we only used 5%. Yes, it was money. Yes, it surfaced water. Would it have been a better plan to have a beautiful filtration system under Murray Creek? I don't know what this new system costs. There is 6 million, 15 million. Well, we think of a couple of people here. That somewhere along the line, the government came up with a lot of money to build this system. Now we're coming here and learning that, yes, it's probably not working. Why? Well, there are the numbers.
Thanks, Hank.
Yeah, you're welcome.
Okay, so back to the original statement we came in. I can't answer 50 questions at once. If you broke that down into one question at a time, I would
I
certainly
didn't
answer it.
answer right there.
The answer to your question is, people in this room chose drinking water over volume. So that's what we're trying to do, okay?
Steve.
And, hold on. And we'll never get through this, so I'm going to let Ross have a question, and then we're going to go on to the next slide.
Before you guys said this, we chose drinking water over everything else. No, we didn't. Because you took a vote here in town. You only got 1% over the liquor legal thing. You could pass it. People didn't want this new system. They wanted Murray Creek, a lot of them did. The filtering system would have been better than what you're saying right now. And it would have cost us maybe a little bit more money, but less hassle.
Al didn't want the filtering system.
So I disagree with you there. I think we're a little bit smarter than what you're saying we are.
That's fine, everybody, okay? Let's calm it down. We're not going to get into lectures and stuff like that. Valid point, Ross, but let's keep it down, and we don't need comments from the back either. So basically, we're going to try to keep the meeting at a level, or we'll be here till midnight, and I'm not prepared to be here till midnight, neither is anybody else. So we're going to go on to the next slide. We'll keep the questions coming, and Helen, I got you.
Okay, so in a nutshell, consumption is an issue based on two things. Consumption on the people's side and leakage in the system. That's why we're here looking at leakage right now. The next thing is, this is what I'm seeing in the office, in the SCADA system, which shows this is the reservoir level, the green line. When people are watering on an odd day, this is the drop. And that's not the problem by itself. The system would recover during the daytime if people didn't water during the day, which is what we're asking you not to do. 50% of that water is wasted to evaporation. Please don't water during the daytime. We also cannot sustain watering all night, but you can water for a reasonable amount of time in between. Anyways, this represents people watering all day. Reservoir did not recover. We issued an emergency message. Clearly, it's able to recover because people actually listened, which is great. This is the odd day watering again, which is the drop. That's fine. It continued to recover. Okay, so this shows that based on people's consumption following the rules, the system is perfectly capable of sustaining it. Oh, one more thing, sorry. These lines across the top here, there's the green, the purple, and the blue. They're 1, 2, 3. These are actually the wells. So if they're running or not, so this is their flow. So you can see by this line here, the blue one is number 3. It's never shut off, and it continues to be that way from day 1. Has not shut off once. Number 2 shut off because there was rain in these periods, and then it got hot and it hasn't shut off. I think it actually shut off the first time last weekend. Number 1, it's been shut off a few times, and it hasn't shut off again until just last weekend. So we'll get into that a little later.
Steve.
Okay, hold on. Now, Helen, you're first.
Yes, I just have maybe an immaterial question about the pumps. You talk about the pumps burning out. Do they not have an automatic shut-off so that they wouldn't burn out? As soon as there's no water, they shut down?
Yes, it does. In the back.
Yeah, so the pumps will never burn out?
I wouldn't say that. Okay, so over here to this slide, you can see where the pumps shut down. In this case, they're shutting down because the reservoir actually filled up. You can see where it peaked up to here and it shut off on purpose. We've actually had them shut down several times when we started the system because they actually went below that threshold trigger you're talking about, and then they shut down purposely because of that protection system. What we found out was they couldn't keep up to demand, and we've been constantly lowering that number carefully to make sure we don't get cavitation, but still can run the pumps. Now, that does a whole bunch of things, and all of them are bad. But at the same time, you guys need to drink water. So we keep hedging our bets, so to speak, and lowering that alarm level, and the pumps keep running. So in the same time, we're learning what the reservoir, the groundwater here, what that reservoir groundwater can sustain. And again, learning curve, it's like having a new baby, everything's new, right? So we need to know what that groundwater can sustain. And yes, there's still an issue with possibly burning up pumps. And more importantly, if we collapse a well, that's way more money, way more.
Thanks, Helen. Pete, you're next.
Yeah, well, it's obvious to me that you guys, or somebody didn't do the math on the consumption of the water, because if not, we wouldn't be going through this meeting right now. I think the most important thing here that's not being discussed is that at this time of year, everybody's doing gardens and irrigation, and you guys didn't plan on that. But if we went to Murray Creek water for irrigation, we wouldn't have to worry about drinking water.
I agree with the idea of going to Murray Creek for drinking water, but you know what? Somebody has to pay for that. We don't print money in our office. If you guys want to pay for that, you are entirely welcome to do so.
Well, don't you think that this should have been taken up right in the beginning and addressed then?
I don't think you understand how much it's going to cost.
Well, how much does it cost to date?
Okay, let me interject.
How much does it cost to date?
Okay, well, let him answer, Pete.
I'll
Let's
try to
go.
answer your question, Peter. Arden misspoke there. He meant to say irrigation water. If you want irrigation water, it has to be physically separate from the potable water system, which is a whole other network. I don't know what that's going to cost. I wouldn't even guess. Hazard a guess. I mean, I just looked at the people in Cherry Creek wanted us to put in a water system. Admittedly, it's a lot of big spaces between houses. It was $25 million as an estimate. You're not going down that road.
So how are you going to...
Secondly, when the wells were designed, the consultants looked at historical consumption in Spences Bridge, including irrigation. And they designed those wells and the demand based on those numbers. So it was designed. It was designed properly. Thirdly, my mandate is to provide you with drinking water. Let's say.
Drink it.
We can't drink it.
You will be able to.
It's a drink.
That's my mandate. My decisions on which way to go were meant for me to provide you with drinking water.
Well, you're not drinking it, first of all. You're not drinking it, so you don't know what the heck we're drinking here.
Thank you, Pete. Dave?
I was just on the graph where you said this system will work because reservoirs recovered. That last graph you showed for what was it, the holiday weekend went way down.
Yeah.
That one there.
Yeah.
Okay, is that it did recover and then like the odd day basically, as you said, went down again and it recovered at night again. So the system is working proper. Is that on our 2-hour emergency though? Is that?
Yes, we issued a reminder here to everybody about the system. I mean, if you look at this drop here, and imagine that happened one more night, which was coming, that was right there, we would be in serious jeopardy. There'd be no fire protection in the community, and on and on. We don't want to be in that scenario.
Yeah,
So we interjected a point there to make sure that things recover. So keeping in mind that right now, the emergency issue is that there's leaks in the system, and there are some folks out there abusing it. Unfortunately, a lot of you are paying for both of those things. Those folks that are abusing it are causing issues, and our leaks are causing issues. We hope to fix those leaks right away, but we still need to correct the abuse. Okay? Unfortunately, like I said, that affects the good people too.
Okay, we're going on the next slide, and then I'll get Hank.
Yeah. What's the capacity of that tank in the reservoir above it? The capacity in the tank?
Size of the reservoir?
In the reservoir here up top?
Yeah.
The one that 30 years ago they built 20 feet too high because it was supposed to be fed by Murray Creek. Do you remember that one? Some of us?
Yes. Reservoir size is in here, and there's 2 cells. They're 250-ish cubic meters each.
200 cubic meters?
250,000 cubic liters.
282 cubic meters each.
282. So
Times 2.
282.
Okay.
So that's 2 million liters.
560.
Now, in this whole equation, Arnie and his crew, are they calculated in this? Because that was supposed to be the reservoir for our fire department.
Yes,
Is Arnie calculated in this with his crew?
The reservoirs were designed to meet fire flow.
Pretty close here at a 2-day supply, if I'm right? If the wells packed it up, we'd have 2 days in that reservoir. Is Arnie calculated in this?
Yes.
I mean,
Yes.
who did the engineering here? I mean, that's our question. It's not the first crew up. The tank was built 20 feet too high.
The answer is yes, Hank. And
Okay, I'm asking too much.
okay, there you go. That's cool. No, the answer is yes. So let's get on to a next slide, maybe.
just so you are aware, there was a big, huge report that Peter was talking about earlier. It does cover all of that stuff in there. In fact, I've got a little excerpt from it right in front of me, and it does talk about calculations for fire flows, for community consumption, per capita, all of that. Okay, it is in there. Present?
Yeah.
So this is the same kind of graph as the other one, except it covers the whole week span. Okay, so it also includes a few other pieces of information. What we're looking at here is the green line again, which represents the reservoir fill cycles. And I just want to say that we did issue, okay, this back here is when we issued the first notice, please conserve water. It did great, it filled up almost. Then this is the odd watering cycle. And then it filled up again. Then we issued a notice here that said, thank you for conserving water, we're in good shape. And then it went downhill. So we issued another notice here saying, please conserve water for the weekend, and you guys did a great job through the weekend. Okay, so it filled up, it emptied like normal, filled up, emptied like normal, and then come today, people watered all day and all night again.
Steve.
Okay, Trudy, you're on the list first. Pete, you're after that.
Dulcie.
Dulcie.
My question is back to the wells. How deep are those wells?
I don't have that number off the top of my head, sorry.
They're in the order of about 140 feet, 30-some meters, 35 meters.
Should have they been deeper?
You drill till you find an adequate quantity of water to meet your demand. That's very, very complicated
Oh, I know, but
decision.
Thanks, Bill. Now Pete, your turn.
Well, I'm still getting back to the irrigation, and even though you guys keep talking about the millions of dollars that it would cost.
Quiet, so Pete can speak, you guys.
It's not sort of solve the situation unless you guys can come up with a better idea as to how you're going to remedy this lack of water. Is this going to last for this year, next year, or is this forever? Because that's not what any of us voted for.
No, thanks, Pete. I think, you know, for one thing, like we said, we're in the infant stage, and for another thing, until we fix the leaks, as he said, we've identified 4 major leaks and stuff like that. They're here today to tell you what we're doing moving forward, and I appreciate everybody's concern here. I'm concerned. This happened way before my time, and I'm sort of in the middle of this, and but I don't think anybody knows until we fix those leaks where we're actually going to be with this water. These guys don't, I don't, you don't, Pete. Nobody in this room knows until those leaks are fixed. They're identifying now. You can't say they've been wasting time. They got the leak detecting guy in here when we got a call for a sinkhole. Like they said, it's our responsibility when we see abuses by our neighbor. It's our responsibility when we see a sinkhole. It's our responsibility, like Daryl said, when there's ice in the middle of your yard, when there shouldn't be in the winter. Hey, we got a leak there. We need to call the TNRD and say, hey, we got a leak, or talk to me and I'll relay the message. But if we don't do that and police ourselves, yeah, we're going to have some problems here, folks. But if we police ourselves and we're all good neighbors and take care of our toilets and our sinks and water properly, this system was designed to work. What we didn't have, the wild card, was the amount of leaks that we're finding right now and how big these leaks are. Yes, it's a problem. Yes, the leak detector is here, working on the problem right now. Yes, it will be fixed. And once it's fixed, maybe we'll be sitting here again and answering some questions, and maybe the answers will be you like them a little bit better. We don't know that, but the jury's still out. So let's let these guys do their job. Let's let the leak guys do their job. Let's get these leaks fixed. Let's comply as much as we can and see if we can get this graph going the way it's supposed to be, which is a nice recovery. That's why we stop the watering. We need the recovery for the wells, and so we can start watering again.
How much more money is this going to cost?
Pete, sit down right now. Thank you very much. Don't do that again. Or the meeting, Roy, and also you, okay?
I don't need a lecture from you.
You know what?
Please go through.
I'm not giving you a lecture. If you would do the courtesy of...
I'm in the people all the time. Let them ask questions.
Roy, are you raising your hand to be on the speaker list? Because I'll be happy to put you there.
Well, stop it then. Let them talk and people ask them questions.
I'll be happy to put you there, Roy, but don't please go out of order again. Okay. So anyways, Daryl, you're on the speaker list. You're up.
Okay, I just got a question. Can we switch back and forth from Mary Creek to this system here, just like for watering if there's a problem?
Yes and no. One of the things that I argued for from the beginning was to have an emergency connection there. One of our hang-ups is we're dealing with 2 different health networks, Interior Health being the provincial and Federal Health being the Health Canada side. They both have rules which restrict connections to non-treated water. So if we go to a system that's drinkable, which it is today, but I can't technically tell you that until later, I'll cover that later. We don't want to have non-treated water connected to a system that's good drinking water, which it is currently, but like I said, I can't officially announce that yet. So the answer to your question is yes, in an emergency, we do have a connection there for fire issues, the forest fire, and I've kept that. But I can't just switch it over tomorrow because it affects too many folks.
So it will go through the same line there?
It would actually work, yes.
I see what you're saying, but what I'm saying is we couldn't put it, it would go through our drinking water line if you wanted to put it just for irrigation?
Yes, the only way to separate them is build a whole new system, and as Peter tried to allude to earlier, that's over $20 million worth of pipe. That's just for irrigation.
We give you roads too, though.
Somebody's got to pay for it.
Okay, we'll get,
Oh, I got 3 on the speakers list. Let's get through this slide, then I'll get you, okay? We're gonna at least go through one slide.
Like I mentioned, when this was designed, we took the population of Spences Bridge and the population of all the reserves in 2007. Those numbers were extrapolated into the future, and it was designed to meet the need, which is almost twice as many people, from 244 to 404 in 2027. And so those wells were designed to meet the need in 2027 based on the consumption that we saw in the past. So you add that to the fact that now if we put some conservation measures in place and people start using less, those wells are designed to meet the need. That's the point of this. It was designed to meet the need.
Okay, Hank, you're next on the list.
Okay, well, while we're at that topic, I was going to ask how many parts per million are injecting into the system. But let's take with that one, 2012, 283. That's actually single people. How many families, how many private addresses are using this water? If we divide it by 3, we've got actually 90 families. Because when I said that 50 families were pumping 1 million, we're using 1 million liters, I used 50. Now I've got a scary number here, 283, say 3 to the family, as a bit of expense with lots of singles, so 90. I can almost double that. We're using 2 million liters then a day. And you're saying at 1.2 million. I don't get it. Numbers don't add up here.
Okay, thanks, Hank.
Absolutely not.
Okay. Hey, Hank, you know, the numbers are a tough one. And why don't you and Arden after the meeting discuss numbers, because you two are the number people.
This is the expert.
After the meeting.
Everybody wondered why it's not working. I'll tell you right now why it's not working.
Well, yeah, and you and Arden need to have that conversation afterwards, for sure. So, so we've got, and let's keep it to questions as much as we can, you guys. Pete, you're next.
Well, I'm just concerned about how long before you guys correct this problem. I mean, it's only been going on for how long now?
Thanks, Pete. So, like I said, there's leak detectors.
Hold it, Steve, I didn't ask you that question, I asked those guys.
Okay,
How
Arden.
long is it going to take to repair the system, and how much more money is it going to cost the public?
Pete, I was actually going to refer that to Arden for you, so that's what I was doing. So anyways, Arden, go ahead.
So how long to repair the system? First we got to find all the leaks. I would expect that'll take us this week. Then we got to get a contractor in to do them. I'm assuming there's going to be a handful, 6 or 7, that are significant, and we'll go around and do those. Assume that's 1 per day, depending on the size, location, parts required, etc. So I'm going to say it's going to be probably to the end of the month to get it done in a perfect world.
Since the water is not drinkable now, how is it going to be in the future any different?
Okay, that's a good question. Let's talk about whether the water is drinkable or not. I am actually drinking water right this second from your tap, because I know every day that we test it, and I know that the samples that come back, I know what the chlorination is, and I know it's safe. The reason I have not ruled that out to you is because we've been doing lots of things behind the scenes. So one of the problems we have is down at the pump house, there's a very small barrel there because it used to just serve the reserve area. Now it serves all of Spences Bridge. We need a very large barrel that holds chlorine. That pumps out of there continuously. With the excessive volumes that we have and the larger service area, that tiny barrel needs to be filled all the time. So the guy needs to be there to fill it up all the time. There was a high risk that it could run out of chlorine. So we changed over, because of 4% before, 4% chlorine bleach, we've changed over to 12% recently. It takes time to start adjusting all of your pumps and tune them in. It's very finicky. It's not as easy as you might think. Flows change, things change all the time. We need to readjust all those pumps for a 12% bleach solution, and then the system needs to stabilize. You may have noticed your chlorine bleach was really high for last week. That's the reason. We've been turning it down, trying to get it stabilized. It's actually at that point almost right now. Al, is that right?
Just last night was the best show we've had. Turbidity is the lowest I've seen it since I've been here at 8 years, 0.30. Free chlorine is still pretty high, 0.75, and total at 8.4.
Right.
I've got some room to move down, but I get much below 0.5. You get into risky territory because I've got to get that up to Joyce's up on the other end of town and still have some chlorination. That's why it's a little heavier down in this area.
So what I was trying to say is now it's a new system. When you inject chlorine down to the far end and it's really rich, you have to look at how it goes the entire system and test at the far end because it has to meet interior health threshold of 0.2 parts per million. So we inject it at 1.4, it goes through the whole system, by the time it gets to the end it's 1.22.
So to answer your question, Peter?
No, not quite.
Can I know? So to answer your question,
No, not quite.
I will answer what I'm trying to say. I will answer your question. So, Arden and Al are satisfied that there's enough chlorine in the system at all points to meet the health standards of both Health Canada and IHA. We will take off the boil water notice.
That is coming soon.
Well, I don't doubt that for 1 minute. I don't doubt that for 1 minute. But has anybody considered the fact that what's the long-term liability here on somebody's health while you guys are playing these games of adding and taking and adding and taking and adding and taking? And we're the ones that are paying for the bill here, and we're subjected to this crap.
Thanks, Pete. Okay. Anyways, we're going to move on. Joe, you're next.
We were talking about the lines, the new lines the weekend. I think on across those, the contractors put it in, got to fix it.
Most likely. I mean, first we got to find out why it's leaking, right? So if there was a vehicle accident or somebody was digging over there with a backhoe and we didn't know about that, that's a different issue. If it is a contractor issue, which may or may not be at this point, then under warranty, you can back fix that.
Okay.
Thanks, Joe. Trudy?
I'm losing my raspberries, I'm losing my lawn. So how long is this going to take before, just to see how brown my lawn is? And I'm watering 5 to 2 hours in.
Okay, well,
And I'm watering my vegetable garden every night for an hour by hand.
right.
Like,
I thank you for your sacrifice. I thank you for following the rules. What we need to do is ensure that people have water to drink, water to shower, water to cook with. That's priority 1. Priority 2 is keep things alive, which 2 hours a day is, I know, close to that threshold. But at this point, when we saw the numbers earlier, where we can see that reservoir down to 45%, we're risking the health of the community, fire protection being a good example, and so on. We have to, my job is to make sure that there's drinking water first, because that's before your plant, okay? I realize that there's not enough water there right now to make people happy, but as soon as we get the leak thing under control, I'm confident we will raise that back up to a reasonable level. This is an emergency measures thing to make sure you have water to drink in the morning.
Is our yard going to be dead by the time?
I hope not.
Hold on. Jean, you're next.
Hi. I definitely do not have enough education on how to water appropriately. So I was just watching your charts and stuff, and when the warning came out, I reduced watering to less than 2 hours every 2 days and kind of held off. But now I've got 3 giant fruit trees that need a good watering. I need a lot more education, know how to be part of this system. I don't know, do I have to water those trees more than an hour and a half or 2 hours every 2 days to bring them back up to being healthy? And you know, it's sort of a critical thing for us because for a lot of us on low income, the food that we're growing is what's bringing our cost of living down. And so I'm just putting out, I certainly need more information on what trees need how much, when, and how often. Is it better to water a little bit every 2 days or to bump it up, you know, once a week and it's a heavy load? It's looking like this. It needs to be consistent for you. The pump and the well and the consumption needs. But is that appropriate for the agricultural needs?
That is a great question. Educating folks is part of the reason we're here tonight. We actually have some material, I hope, Peter, about websites and stuff that are have great information on it. I don't know if you have the web or not, but I know that there are plenty of folks in here that grow fruit, and they'll probably help you answer the question. But short answer is, water more frequently, and don't leave it starved too long, I guess would be the answer. So at the end of the day, I'm not really asking anybody to make their lawn die or their gardens die. What I'm trying to ask you to do is to be reasonable. Because you can't water all day, and you can't water all night.
Our trees are dying.
Okay, if we go back to the graph for a moment, it clearly shows where people are watering all day and all night. And that's why we're having a problem. If you water appropriately, don't leave the hose run all night. Don't leave it run all day. Then we will get through the emergency session, and then we can raise the number up back to a reasonable level. Okay?
Look at the numbers. You don't get it.
Okay, just a little bit on water conservation. As Art said, there are a million websites out there. I just went on, I Googled water conservation, and I came up with 3, I copied them down. You've got access to the internet, go on and educate yourself. I mean, we want to be able to educate people as well, and we're going to work on a program to do that. For example, I just found, you know, I Googled one thing, I found some tips around the house. I mean, there's a million things you can do, and Steve's already doing one of them, restaurant cool. It's
I am.
when washing dishes by hand, don't leave the water running for rinsing. And he fixed his toilet, because I was in there last week and I told him his toilet was leaking. So, and he fixed it. So, I mean, those are simple things that you can do. Just, and every little bit helps, right? So, I mean, you can educate yourself. And then secondly, stuff in the yard. I mean, there's lots of things you can do there too. And the ones that make sense to me, drought-resistant plants and shrubs. I know you're growing vegetables. I know you're growing fruit. That's a different story. Put mulch around the trees and plants to hold the moisture in. Those types, right?
You almost sound like a botanist.
I'm not.
I know.
Thank you.
My thumb's not green, you know, I see people out cleaning their driveway, not here, but town with the hose. That drives me nuts. Use a broom. It's going to rain sometime, maybe October. Again.
And Gene brings up a very good point on the fruit trees, and me being a farmer, I'd just like to put this out there real quick. Fruit trees look like they're going to die. I mean, when they don't get enough water. You go there and you go, oh my God. However, it's harder to kill a fruit tree than it is to keep it alive. So, I mean, you're not going
cherry tree, that Steve.
with every second, yeah, it literally is.
It's half dead.
Well, if you're watering it 2 hours every second day, your fruit trees are not going to die. The Widow Smiths and the step orchard here had fruit trees on them that lived for well over 10 years after there was no water put on them at all in our climate. So I don't know, there's probably something else wrong with the fruit tree, Ross. I just got to say that. Because I'm just using those as the step farms and the Widow Smith orchard as examples of fruit trees that had no water at all, that lived for green 10 years after nobody was watering them. Fruit trees are very resilient. That's the only thing I'm an expert on, so that's all I'm saying.
So when they pull the cap off, there's water right there and it's dripping. So he opens it up, closes it down, makes sure it drains properly, and during it leaks, he's got a hydrophone, a magnetic amplified microphone that sticks to the metal. He can hear the hiss in his headphone set. He knows it's not leaking anymore when the hiss stops. He's fixed 3 or 4 of those today. Just those things that we fixed today, I'm thinking there's 5 or 6 of them. Already our graph, I looked at the skate earlier on and it's already climbing back up. So our reservoir's filling, okay? Those few things have already made a change. We know that there's other places already we discovered today. Sinkhole was mentioned earlier, pretty substantial leak there we suspect. A couple other ones we found. Something to say there's probably 2 or 3 leaks that we found in the ground today, which we'll get to repair in the next few weeks. Those will make a big difference. So you guys keep, focusing on the system doesn't have enough water. I keep trying to tell you it's too early to say that. We've got to fix the leaks, then we'll evaluate what it has enough water. Okay?
Why don't we swing over?
Hold on, Ross. I'll get you down. You're on the speaker list, Ross. But Daryl's first.
Okay, I got a question about people that don't live here year-round, the people that do take off, like you're talking about. Can say not shut off the water at the road when they are taking off for extended periods of time?
Absolutely we can, except I don't know when you go on vacation. So it's your job to phone me and tell me. Actually, it's to your advantage because you don't have to pay for water for that period. So if that guy doesn't tell me he's leaving for the year, I don't know. Yeah, just go out and turn off really
Good, actually, very good question, Darrell. So keep that in mind. You know, you can phone the TNRD, they'll turn you off. Hold on, we got a pretty big speaker list here. I got you, Dave, Lori. Hold on. But next on the speaker list, Pete, you were next.
What do you guys got planned if after you fix all the leaks and we still don't have enough water?
If that's the case, then that's a design issue, and then that will be a completely different ball of wax. And that's probably not something we'll discuss in this forum. That'll probably require lawyers.
Thank you. Good question, Pete. Ross, you're next. Okay, thank you, Ross. Jean, you're next.
Oh, yeah.
You don't have to be. You can move to the bottom.
Well, I'm just curious whether this is true for other people and might have affected your statistics, but I'm thinking back to 2007 and what my consumption needs were at that time. And in this year, 2013, my consumption needs are actually a lot higher. First of all, it's a lot hotter earlier in June. I keep a record every year of in the growing seasons. And second of all, I'm trying to keep my costs down, living expenses down. So I've planted probably 3 more trees, and now I've got a little garden, and that's just me. So like my water needs have gone up since your baseline data was taken, and I don't know about others, but that's that's a factor.
That's a good question. My wife is tiny, but her thumb is green and it's big. And she grows a lot of things in our backyard. We have a huge garden too. So in Kamloops, another hot climate, not as here, but we live in this desert zone too. We use these wind-up little timers on our hose because it's too easy to turn the sprinkler on and forget about it. And the phone rings and watch TV or answer the door. It could be on for the night. You could forget about it. It could be on for several hours. But these little timers, you wind them up, set it for 30 minutes, you walk away whatever time you need, and it's done. So you don't have to worry about shutting it off. So that's my suggestion, first of all.
I've got one of those.
Right, so the other side of that is we pay per cubic meter in Kamloops. So I feel the pain from the garden and fruit trees in the backyard, and I know exactly what you're talking about, but at the same time, we still need to be sustainable as a community, as cities, as everything else, as a group of people living together in a town. We need to be sustainable. So you need to do what's reasonable for you, but you also have to be aware that you have to pay for that. It's no different than power. Water someday will be metered here and everywhere, just like it is in towns, just like it is across the nation. Water meters are inevitable. And learning about how to do things properly will pay dividends for you and your community.
Thank you. Lori, you're next.
I just want to know how much it costs to turn on and turn off your water at the crew.
It's currently $35 to turn it off, or $35 to turn it on. But if you're going to Vegas or wherever it's down south for the winter where it's warmer, that will save you money. We do that a lot. We got a vacation community, Loon Lake, which Alan was down to us. Loon Lake is a vacation community for folks from Vancouver mostly, and every winter I think 70% of those properties turn the water on.
Thank you, Lori. Good question. Dave, you're next.
Actually, Lori just did my question, but I got one comment is these gardens and stuff in town, I know I do it with very little water. It's set on a timer with drip lines. It uses very little water, it's on a timer. I water for an hour every other day on a drip line, and my garden is green as green can be. It looks great.
Yeah. And that's right, we're trying to do the same thing at our house. That is the best way to do it.
Mine's like 30 by 20, full of fruit and vegetables, and it's mine with an hour every other day. It's under plastic on a drip line.
So you're reinforcing our message here. It's really about training, about learning how to do it better.
And Daryl.
We have land taxes and we have water. Yeah. Well, we're paying for water right now. Except for land taxes. Which I've never had to pay for.
Water is a utility, a commodity, just like gas or natural gas or electricity. It's the same as utility. So you pay for it just like that.
You lived in a municipality before?
Yeah, Kansas River, I'm trying to figure out, and I paid the same tax that I'm paying here, but I didn't have water bill on top of that.
Well, municipalities, like, was it a city or village, city, town? Yeah, I didn't know you said wait, that's
City, 60,000 people.
Yeah, so municipalities have the ability to have utilities and utility bills. We don't have that ability as a regional district. The only way we can do it is through water tolls. It's basically the same thing, it's just a technical issue. And cities have the ability to shift money from different departments back and forth. We don't have that ability. We have a water service. And in order to run that water service, we have to collect tolls. That's the way it works.
Let me give you a little example on that. We have a water system that's extremely small. It has 16 houses on it. So the cost of a fire hydrant installed, a brand new fire hydrant, is around $7,000. So if I put a fire hydrant in Savinaw, where there's 400 people or 400 services, whatever that is, 400 services, I guess, whatever. That cost gets dispersed through that water system, and every person pays a low amount of money. I don't want to do the math. Okay, but if I come and do that into our other location where there's 16 houses on it, if you split up $7,000 for one hydrant through 16 houses, that's extreme. If you're paying for their water costs and the pumping and all that other stuff, treatment on top of that, and you put in one fire hydrant, the whole system goes bust. So what I'm trying to say is there's an economy of scale. So if you live in a large community, your water bills are going to be smaller. If you live in a small community, your water bills are going to be higher. That's just the math.
And a perfect example of that is the other water system we put in Wallachine. They're paying more than we are. So, and once again, Interior Health played a role there because they had to come off of Peters Creek, which was... Jimmy Street. Jimmy Street. Yeah, not Peters. It was Jimmy's. Anyways, and so small scale. Yes.
Do individual landowners have the opportunity to drill their own well?
Yes, you do. You don't have to pay the tolls because you wouldn't be connected to the system. However, your parcel of land will be inside the service area, and you're still going to be paying for all the infrastructure on the parcel tax like everybody else.
I do want to talk about wells because that is one of the possible leak or cross-contamination issues. So in Interior Health rules, you should not have our water system in your house and your well system in your house because there's a possibility of well water entering into the drinking water system. And if your well is not up to par, you could affect the health of all your other community members. Okay, that's illegal. So if you want to use a well for irrigation, that's fine, but never ever connect it to the drinking water system. Okay, that's illegal. And what's that?
Digging a well in your yard and having to leave.
Yeah, I know. And you're right. And I'm glad you said that because I grew up on a farm in Alberta and we had our own well and it's a pain in the butt. Okay, the next thing I want to say though is in history, a lot of times it had that problem. It had the well system hooked to the house and they hooked in the system from the municipal side. So that exists in a lot of places. The risk is actually the other way too. We can be continuously pumping water through your house and filling your well up and no one would ever know. And we've had that problem occur in some of our other systems. It looks like huge consumption, well it is huge consumption, and you can't tell from anywhere outside. So please, if you have a well in your place, please make sure there's no cross-contamination connection point. Please.
Thank you. Ronnie, you're next.
On your graph, can you tell the difference in consumption between the even days and the odd days? Because definitely there's more odd people. Yeah. Our whole street is odd.
You said yes, the graph clearly shows the consumption for
I'd be willing to change if you want to make some adjustments to that.
Yeah, I've already looked at some scenarios. One of the pieces of information I'm missing was the chief voice to it. Is I've asked the band manager over there for...
Lynn's in the back too.
Yep. I've asked them for some data about addressing because we don't have that right now. And that'll help us make a decision about how to split the communities up. One of the things we thought about was splitting the community as a bridge, so everybody east and west of that, but that doesn't work because of some other issues in distribution. So we are trying to figure out the best way. But like I mentioned early on in the conversation, it is a problem, but it's not the problem. Like it's not causing our lack of water. Even if we distribute those houses so they're watering more evenly, the grand total is still more than we're creating. So at this point, it's not at the top of my priority list. We've got to fix leaks, got to fix our consumption. Those things are number one. And we'll get to that later.
Okay, hold on, Dulcie, you're next on the list.
I'm just curious about water systems. Most of our properties here are septic, you know, and I know that that can cause a different problem again, you know.
No, not really. You can, I grew up on a farm, as mentioned earlier. We had septic too, well and septic. So there is a relationship between consumption of water and how much you're putting into your septic tanks. So in essence, if you were to go to a low flow toilet like they got here and make sure your taps don't leak, you're actually extending the life of your septic system as well. So that's a win-win. It costs you less money overall too. As far as septic systems affecting our water, that wouldn't happen except in the case where there's leaks. If we were to have a shutdown of the system, you can have back flushing from the groundwater into it, which is one of the reasons we're focusing on those repairs, which is one of the reasons I haven't removed the boil water system yet, boil water notice, sorry, because we need those gross leaks fixed before we do that.
Okay, Wanda?
Oh, I'm like Tina, I forgot what I was. No, it had to do with if there is a well in town, you know about it. If somebody has drilled for a well, you would know about it?
No, not necessarily. We can look it up. If it's done properly and legally and registered through the right companies, it does end up on the provincial database, and I can look them up there, but that's it.
So if we wanted to find out if there was a well on a piece of property, we could just go there.
It's a public website.
You can go to, there's a website you can go to. Quite a time delay when the data goes on. The data might be a couple years old.
And if you find a well, how do we know that they're not going into our system?
You'd have to spend it.
Under the bylaw, we have the right to enter properties and look for those kinds of things, but we have to have significant proof before we enforce that. Like a leak.
Okay. Are we done here? Looks like.
On the list.
Oh yeah, Hank, you're on the list. Yes. You start with an H, don't you?
And Steve, I would like to about 5 minutes, if you don't mind. I do have a few things to say. I was with the water advocacy group on Vancouver Island for 7 years, and I have some information I would like to share with the group and with the speaker.
Okay, then after Hank, we'll do that.
Thank you, Steve.
Okay.
You gonna dance?
I don't think there's any dancing involved, Hank, so fire away.
What's the status on Marie Creek? I heard from Arnie, they're using it for backup. Just in case we got hiccups in the system. We got a catastrophic failure in the wells. Possible? You're on dry. Is there such a thing as backup from Marie Creek? Like the system still in operation in a way? Like the chlorine shed still there? In case of emergency, can you turn on Marie Creek?
Yes, we talked about that earlier. In fact, conversations with the band early on, we asked to keep that hooked up because, for example, wells run on electricity. The forest fire comes over the mountain, takes out your power, then there's no water in the community to fight fire. So clearly we want to have that as our backup system, and we have designed it so that it can be turned on in a short notice. So something I'll talk about to Arnie about later on. Al's already mentioned, I think, to him. There's a couple of valves that need to be opened, the crank weir gate closed, it fills up with water, it charges the system, and then we have water for an emergency. Now here's the catch. When that water comes on, we have to notify everybody there's a boil water notice. At that instant, there's a risk of getting sick from drinking it, okay, because it needs to be chlorinated, and that system may not start up right away. It's a little bit finicky and fussy. I think right now it's offline because we got water in it to keep from drying out.
So what are you saying, might be a delay in getting service from Marie Creek?
There'll be a quick response for fire because it's emergency, and we'll be notifying everybody as fast as possible there's a boil water notice because you could get sick from that. But getting the chlorine hooked up, there will be a delay. Okay? So it is there for an emergency. Think about it that way. It's not at a whim. It's an emergency.
The water will be going right away, but the chlorine to get into the system is going to take a bit of time. Okay, there you go. You want to come sit here? Okay, two things.
Okay, so I did mention earlier that we use wind-up numbers on our system at home for our gardens. So I think they're around $10 to buy them at the hardware store. I highly recommend them. I did get some cheap ones that didn't work have more fancy ones out there. I know the band was talking about buying some of their folks with a little timer on it, the batteries in the back. They're probably better quality. I want to consider that. They do work great. They're relatively cheap, and it keeps you from forgetting about stuff. And the last thing was I do have some printouts.
I can't hear.
Hold on.
I do have some printouts of some of the water sites that Peter had up earlier, and there are some great things on here for learning about water conservation if you wish. You're free to have a look at those and take them after if you want. Okay, that's it for me.
Okay.
Okay. Here in a second.
Oh.
Okay. So a couple of weeks ago, Steve said, can we do something to help? You know, one of the things we have in our water restrictions is using a spring-loaded nozzle. So yesterday, Arden and I got to go to Costco and spend a whole bunch of Steve's money, and we bought enough for the whole community. 2 bags. It only gets one, so if lucky people are going to get the fancy one, and the stragglers are going to get just the simple one with a spray nozzle. So before you go, come up and see us, and we'll give you one. Thanks to him.
Smart folks will choose these. Okay, sorry, go ahead.
Okay, well, I don't know why I'm sitting up here, because I just really had some basic questions and some presentation, but I'm here, so I'm going to stay. And my name is Kathleen. I was a drinking water advocate in Vancouver Island for 7 years. I ran a group called Comox Valley Water Watch Coalition. I did presentations to regional government, Salmon government panels about water conservation programs. I worked with regional government. I did public education in parks and festivals and fairs, in malls, in schools, everywhere. So we don't have to recreate the wheel here in water conservation. I think that everybody knows that water is sacred. Water is also a human right and has been deemed that by the United Nations. First, my personal social impact here as a ratepayer and landowner in Spences Bridge. I'm appalled at the treatment of the residents in this community. The TNRD treated the residents of this community and a little indifferently in their impact on water conservation. I think that it divided many people in the community, calling neighbors offenders. I heard quotes like, "We know who the offenders are," and nobody in this community is called an offender in my book, or should at any time be intimidated regarding their water usage until such time as a full, modern, and respectful water education plan has been implemented. This is a desert community. Our water consumption is much different than that of a rainforest. And, we had ground-fed water in this town for over 50 years, so people don't know. They don't know how to really conserve, how to set up drip irrigation systems. And we need to make those changes in respecting our water, and that's going to take time. It's not going to happen in the past 2 months. So it's a tough job for you guys. Water is an emotional thing, whether people like to say it or not. In government, they say, oh, don't get your emotions involved. But every person in this room will, because it's water, and it affects us. I just wanted to, I had a couple of questions that were answered already in the group, but I wanted to know what the relationship was between Cooks Ferry Indian Band and the TNRD in the partnership regarding water.
You gather my thoughts. We have developed an agreement, a municipal tank service agreement, which basically lays out who owns what, who looks after what, who pays for what. In essence, all infrastructure that's on reserve land belongs to the band. All infrastructure that is not belongs to the TNRD community, with the exception of a little bit of the pipe between Kamshin IR1 along Highway 8, because it was split up basically on who paid for what, proportionally. We have a joint management committee made up of Arden and myself, and Lynn Breaker, the band manager, and Alana Cowan, one of the councillors. We meet monthly to discuss issues.
Is the public invited to those meetings?
Not at this point, no. We're still working our way through some bugs, but it is something I would certainly consider. Any disagreement?
Well, like I said, right now we're just meeting. We just commissioned the system June 3rd. So
So we're just in our work in progress stage, like Peter said, just trying to iron out things right now. So eventually maybe that's something we can look at. Right now we're working collaboratively with TNRD.
Let us think.
So is this, just to get some clarity, is it a public-private partnership that you have then?
We have an agreement, a legal written agreement, yes.
Between a public entity being the TNRD and a private
Between two government bodies.
Okay.
TNRD,
Two
the
government
Cooks
bodies.
Ferry Indian Band.
Thank you for that clarity, Ben. I appreciate that. Bear with me just for a moment. Do you post the water testing results on your website or a link to? Would you test the water? Do you test the water? Does the band test the water?
Actually,
and where can those results of that water testing be found for the public?
okay, so all of our water tests on our side go to Interior Health, which is a public entity, and everybody's capable of phoning in and asking, or I think they're even posted somewhere. I believe we only post if on our website, we only post if there's a boil water notice, and we post if there's a change. So we post changes. If it comes off of boil water, we post that. If it goes on to water quality advisory or boil water notice, we post that. So whatever the current state is, it stays the same, and if there's a change, we post it. So the actual water test results aren't very exciting. I mean, all we're testing for is bacteriological. We're required to test every week. We are still testing our stuff as per Interior Health rules every week. And the band is still doing their stuff every week as per Health Canada rules. At some point, we hope to meld them together in an effort to save money. It doesn't make sense to over-test everything to an extreme level, and we could probably eliminate 50% of that testing at some point, but we have to get those two agencies to agree on a method. So that's down the road for us.
So it would be really helpful if you could just put that direct link onto your website, and then that would be easy for the residents in Spences Bridge to look up what that water quality is. My question is, I really would like to know about the boron levels in that water. It's been rumored in town, we've all talked about the boron levels. Is that harmful for our trees? Is it harmful for our bodies? And what level is this boron at right now? And what other mineral contents in that water may be harmful to us? There's a lot of groundwater around this area that is very contaminated in a natural way. And it's something I'm sure you guys know enough about, but it's concerning.
I will answer that. Initially, when we drilled one of the test wells, there was boron in the water that was slightly over the guideline. Once then they drilled a production well adjacent, and once they did develop the well, did some pumping tests, and sampled, the boron concentrations were below drinking water guidelines. We had initially planned to install treatment for that because the qualities was below, the concentrations were below the guidelines. We didn't install that treatment system. That we talked about that as well in doing a full suite of analysis, and we're still working through that. I think we're probably going to do it twice a year.
Thank you. So one more thing I just wanted to bring to your attention, that according to the Drinking Water Protection Act, Section 22, it is the responsibility of the regional district to provide drinking water education for this community prior to initiating a new water system. I have it printed out right here. You know, it's not like you have to reinvent the wheel. The information is out there. There's capable people around here that could help you.
Excellent.
And so, you know, I think before we destroy our gardens and destroy our lawns and things start burning up around our properties, and it increases our risk of fire because we do live in a desert and things could go like that in a minute. So I personally have started a petition, and I would just like to read it to the group. And you know, if people want to sign it, fine. If you don't, that's fine too. So it's an official petition, and I say that I, the undersigned, hereby petition the Thompson Nicola Valley Regional District, known as the TNRD, and its partners in Spences Bridge drinking water source and delivery system of drinking water supply and delivery, We, the people of Spences Bridge, are requesting the TNRD make immediate measures to return the Spences Bridge drinking water supply from groundwater wells on the south side of the Thompson River back to Mary Creek Falls water supply. The following should be in place prior to consideration to return drinking water supply to the well system, and for the following reasons. Please listen before you moan. Number one, the TNRD will provide the residents with a full, modern, and respectful water education and mindfulness program that suits desert living. This education plan shall be in place and fully implemented for up to 2 years before consideration of returning to the wells. And number two, the TNRD and its water partners can assure the residents of Spences Bridge that we have adequate water volume and pressure for our fire department to operate under the fire regulations of British Columbia. And so if anybody wants to sign it, I do have it. I don't think you need to be in fear about it either. So, thank you for the platform, I appreciate it.
Thank you, and as Kathleen mentioned on the drip irrigation and stuff, and people aren't educated, there's a lot of people around town, myself included, if anybody just comes and asks and says, wants to conserve water and let you know how to do drip irrigation, I sort of learned it on my own. It is like Dave said, he's keeping things green. It is fairly easy to do. I'd certainly be willing to help anybody, and you just got a good point. Not everybody is used to watering that way, but it is a great way to water. It conserves water, and does an incredible job, especially if you use mulch in combination with the drip irrigation. So there are people in our community that can also help in this area. So I got Dave on the speaker list, but I had Daryl first.
Okay, I got a quick question. So the pumps, the structure, and all that is on the native land behind us here, correct? What happens if the town and the band gets in a business mess? Can they shut our water off?
We have terms in our legal agreement that give us, if they do that, well, first of all, I can't see it happening because, I mean, it's up to them with both parties. It's reserved here, we're shutting water off to the band office. I mean, it doesn't make sense to me. But secondly, we have legal recourse if that happens. And so do they. And so do they.
There you go. Okay, Dave.
I don't know, just looking at all this, it seems to me like there's a lot of people just basically way too impatient. We got a brand new system here that you guys are working your asses off to try to figure out. We aren't there yet, and everybody's just jumping to the gun. And I think we should just maybe give it some more time, especially before we sign petitions like that and stuff. Give these guys a little bit of time. I'm sure the system was engineered. I don't think they put it in without being engineered, really. So I don't know. I just don't understand what people are jumping the guns like this for.
It's a tough one.
Al? There's a couple of us in this room that are probably lacking a lot of sleep. Just because there's a lot of people that aren't playing by the rules. And when this first started, I spent all night down here just babysitting. And I seen where the water was going. The guys were watering all night. And we now, with that SCADA system, you can look at it between 12 o'clock and 6 o'clock in the morning when the graph's going down like that. Somebody hasn't shut their taps off. It's your water, it's your community. It's not mine. You have to all play by the same rules here. I can only get what I can get out of them pumps. And I mean, Arnie there, in order to fight fire, he needs water. Then it's your house that's burning down. So look after it. I mean, I know in the wintertime with the leaks you got right now, you're using about 95 gallons a minute. And I can pump about 250 gallons a minute. So that means that there's 160 gallons a minute that are going out in the water, out in the ground. And we fix these leaks that are out there, you're probably not using more than 50 gallons a minute, day and night, domestically. So the rest is irrigation, so let's use it together. Worst comes to worst, you'll have to pay the price. Whether, I don't know, you got yourself into a situation now where you can't shut that water system off till the last man is off. Therefore, I mean, Interior Health, DFO, Ministry of Environment, all want you out of Murray Creek. Sure, you can treat that stuff. That's where it would have been the cheapest way to go. But they wouldn't go for that. They, if they'd have put a double line across the bridge and put her up there, settle it, and come back out, it would have been fine. But you've got some pretty nice water coming out of IR1 now. If we just manage it and don't cheat. That's what's happening. You're cheating. You don't turn your water taps off, I can't fill the reservoir. And that's the way it is.
Okay, Wanda.
In this petition, if, say, everyone signs to go back on Memory Creek, how much is this going to cost us?
You'd still be paying for all the stuff we put in the ground, because I'm not allowed to build things I don't have money for.
No, I mean, go back to the old system it's still there. And that, is there gonna be a charge to do this?
First of all, I don't think IHA would let us. I don't think Health Canada would let us. If we did go back there, there's a little clause in the Local Government Act